Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is your host Thomas Hyrie from On the Hot Podcast. Today, this is to be the Combat Series episode number 11. Of course, this episode is coming out on all four of our platforms: our Instagram account, our Facebook account, our YouTube account, and our Apple Podcast account. So let's go ahead and dive into the Combat Series episode 11, kicking things off with the UFC 292 main event. I'll be sharing my the UFC 292 main event summary that we saw took place between Aljamain Sterling and Sean O'Malley. So last Saturday, we saw a bantamweight championship fight that took place in the sport of the UFC inside the MMA world. And we saw Sean O'Malley become the brand new bantamweight champion of the world, defeating Aljamain Sterling via technical knockout knockout in the second round of a 5-round fight, a championship fight that took place Saturday night in the sport of MMA inside the UFC world. So the first round that I saw between these two fighters, the first 5 minutes of the fight, it really was the feeling out process. Nothing really transpired in those first 5 minutes of the first round. Both fighters are getting a feel for each other. Both fighters are having a feeling out process to see what would take place. Basically taking the temperature in the room to see the atmosphere, to feel the temperature that was going to take place for the rest of the fight. And I thought Aljamain Sterling in the first round should have been way more aggressive, shooting for more takedowns instead of studying what Sean O'Malley was going to bring to the table. We all knew he was a knockout artist. As a grappler, as a person that's very comfortable on the ground, Aljamain Sterling, I thought he failed to set the tone early by not shooting for effective takedowns, getting Sean O'Malley potentially intimidated of his grappling abilities. I thought that was a mistake that Aljamain Sterling had in the first round. And then we saw in the second round where things did pick up. For the fight that we did see in the second round, we saw Aljamain Sterling did shoot for a takedown on Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley stuffed the takedown, and then that is when the filling out process went. I think Aljamain Sterling landed a couple of jabs to Sean O'Malley. That's when the pace of the fight picked up, and then Aljamain Sterling actually walked into a vicious right hand that Sean O'Malley was coming with. It walked right into the shot. He was like a deer in headlights. As soon as he saw that shot coming in, he just blinked his eyes, hoped for the best that he wasn't going to get dropped to the canvas. Boom! Aljamain Sterling got dropped to the canvas, and that's all she wrote. Because once Sean O'Malley got Aljamain Sterling down by dropping him with a vicious right hand shot, he was going to town on him. You saw that eye was bleeding from the side view that we saw that Aljamain Sterling was busted wide open, bleeding from his eyebrow, or it was either the top of his eyebrow or from the side of his eye. Sean O'Malley did his work, and the referee came in and stopped the fight. Now, I will say for that KO finish, I do think it was a premature finish. I do believe that the referee could have gave Aljamain Sterling a little bit more time to recover. He was like a fish fillet flopping out of water. He was still moving around somewhat. I thought the fight should have continued maybe for another 5 to 10 seconds. But bottom line is Sean O'Malley had that in the bag. He won that fight by knockout. And that's all she wrote. Sean O'Malley is the new bantamweight champion of the men's division in the UFC. So what will happen next with these two respective fighters? Should Aljamain Sterling get an immediate rematch to fight Sean O'Malley again for the bantamweight championship? So my answer to that is yes. I do believe that Aljamain Sterling is entitled to get an automatic rematch to fight Sean O'Malley again by the end of the year for the bantamweight championship. And I do believe that this is a division that Aljamain Sterling should stay put in following Saturday night's performance. I know win or lose, Aljamain Sterling was talking about potentially moving up to the flyweight division, to potentially set new goals in a new division, becoming king of the flyweight division. But after Saturday night, if he could not dish what Sean O'Malley was given to him, I do believe that Alexander Volkanovski would have a field day with Aljamain Sterling. So I do believe it's best for him to stay put in the bantamweight division and potentially get a rematch with Sean O'Malley to fight for the championship by the end of 2023, maybe in the month of November or December. I think he should shoot for that rematch by the end of the year. So then that brings me to the new bantamweight champion in the world. What's next for Sean O'Malley? So the new bantamweight champion will likely defend his bantamweight championship by the end of the year, most likely happening in November, December, whoever he decides to have his first title defense against. I do believe that the Aljamain Sterling rematch does make the most sense for Sean O'Malley. The storylines there, it was a big headline, one of the biggest combat fights that got presented with during the summer in all combat sports. So the main event stage headline is there for you. The payday would be there for Sean O'Malley and Aljamain Sterling to have a big time rematch. I think the rematch would definitely be better than what we saw transpire on Saturday night. Or Sean O'Malley can defend his bantamweight championship against Corey Sandhagen by the end of the year. I think that would be a great fight as well. So I do believe those are the two fights that Sean O'Malley should have next in terms of defending his bantamweight championship in his first title defense. Now, there were some things that were said after Sean O'Malley won the bantamweight championship that I'm about to address, and that is his comments in a different sport, in the world of boxing, when he called out Gervonta Tank Davis for a dream fight. So would a dream fight between Sean O'Malley and Gervonta Davis be fun to watch? And I'm here to shut it down. The answer is no. That would be, in terms of big time events, you guys have already know how I feel about Tyson Fury versus Francis Ngannou happening by the end of the year, and it's a headline pay-per-view event. That is a spectacle. And if we ever got Sean O'Malley versus Gervonta Davis, that would also be a spectacle. That would not be a big time event. That's two fighters not even fighting for legacy. It's a big payday. That would be a spectacle. Chaos and the casuals in combat sports would eat this out of the palm of their hands, out of Sean O'Malley and Gervonta Davis's hands. They would say this is an incredible fight between a popular MMA star and a popular boxer that has knockout power, but both in their respective sports. But I'm here to tell you, as a fan of combat sports, this would be bad for the sport. Sean O'Malley would get absolutely dominated and destroyed by Gervonta Tank Davis. I understand they're in the same weight classes. Bantamweight division is 135 pounds in UFC. The lightweight division in boxing is 135 pounds. So technically they're the same weight class, but in terms of stylistic, in terms of boxing, Gervonta Davis would eat Sean O'Malley alive. And let's be honest, why is the world even entertaining this? MMA guys are never victorious when they step in a boxing ring. Never. When have we ever talked about an MMA guy stepping foot into a boxing ring and they won the fight? That's never happened. And the same thing would happen if a boxer steps in an MMA cage in an octagon. They're gonna get manhandled and destroyed also. So that's why this cross world events of MMA guys versus boxing guys needs to end. The crossover is not good for either respective sport. The two different sports by any means. Just because you can punch somebody doesn't mean you can step into a boxing ring. Just because you can punch somebody does not mean you're able to defend yourself in an octagon where anything goes. It's got to stop. It's not fun to entertain anymore. And as a fan of combat sports, if that were to ever take place between Sean O'Malley and Gervonta Davis, it would be another Conor McGregor and another Floyd Mayweather story all over again. You have the popular MMA guy and the prime of his career, one of the most popular guys like Conor McGregor was when he was a double champion, when he came over to fight Floyd Mayweather, the most established fighter of this current generation, the guy that was at the top of the mountain, Gervonta Davis, establishing himself as one of the best boxers on the planet today. We all know the outcome. We all know what would happen. Gervonta Davis would destroy Sean O'Malley. So Sean O'Malley needs to stay put, stay in the UFC, defend that bantamweight championship, and prove why you're the best MMA fighters in the sport today. But those are my thoughts on Sean O'Malley versus Aljamain Sterling. That's my fight summary, and that is my prediction of what would happen if Sean O'Malley and Gervonta Davis ever got step foot together in a boxing ring and had a spectacle event with each other.